Hey everyone, I'm Kurt, owner of Country Creek Homes, and we specialize in the design and build of unique outdoor living spaces. And I am a hardscaper.
What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 304 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have another I Am a Hardscaper episode where we sit down with a hardscape business owner and do a deep dive into their business. And today we have Kurt of Country Creek Homes on the show. And before we get into today's episode, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Patio SEO has hopped on board as a sponsor, and they are a leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed. We've had him on the podcast a couple of times, some of our more popular episodes, and he owns hardscape businesses across the country. And now you can have access to the same in-house marketing team that he has access to at patioseo.com. So if you're looking for a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, check them out at patioseo.com. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. George and Peter there are efficiency consultants in our industry, and I've had the privilege of having them both on one episode of the How to Hardscape podcast, and George multiple other times. Always great episodes, and I also got to sit down on a one-on-one with George and went through what they do for businesses, and I left that meeting with a lot of value, so I can't recommend them enough. If you want to learn more about what they do, go to knowledgetreeconsulting.com and get that conversation started with them today. And if you're looking for a software to dive into, check out the How to Hardscape headquarters software, which will help you budget, estimate, job cost, time track, schedule, manage employees, chat groups, and so much more, including our courses. You've got access to our installation courses to use for training and onboarding purposes, or create your own courses, safety training courses, and so on to train your employees. Check it out at hthheadquarters.com. That's hthheadquarters.com. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Kurt. Okay, Kurt, let's get to know a little bit more about you, yourself, how you got started in the industry. Start wherever you want, end wherever you want, but kind of what brought you along this journey to starting your own business?
Yeah, I think like any business owner, it's never straight. It's always all over the place, and I'm sure you know that being a business. If it is straight, I mean, good on you because you figured it out. But mine was definitely not a straight line road. I would say like right out of high school for me, things were all over the place. I thought I wanted to be a cop. Football was my real only passion at the time. I pretty much created an excuse to go to university to play football. So I studied criminology and psychology because I thought I was going to be a cop. And studying those would fast track me through the ranks of being a police officer. I love football, but I found out really quickly that university is not my thing, which I'm sure most people in construction would say the same thing. So after a year, I left that. I came back home. I went back and forth on what I wanted to do. I went through, being a firefighter and in my spare time, building homes. I love construction and carpentry. It's in my blood. It's been in my background since I was a baby. My grandfather came here from Malta and he was a carpenter. So I learned a lot of that from him. And that didn't happen, obviously, either. I didn't become a firefighter. I'm not building houses right now because to get into building houses on your own is very expensive. And I did not have the capital at 20 years old to build a $1 million home and sell it out of my own pocket. So I left that. I kind of went back and forth. I ended up going back to college. I studied construction management. I did it was a 3-year course. I did a couple years of hands-on. The final year was more the management side of construction. So getting into the accounting, construction law, the estimating, really hard into estimating construction projects and more focusedly on new builds. I didn't get into building homes after that either. I really knew I didn't have much interest in working for somebody. And like I mentioned, starting to build homes on your own is very expensive. So I didn't get into that. through that time, pretty much that whole time, I worked at a landscape supply yard, selling hardscaping materials. And that's sort of where I started to get a better understanding of hardscaping and how to build outdoor projects. And I found myself teaching people how to build patios. Simple patios, but I was teaching people how to do it. Homeowners, DIYers mostly. And as I got better at it, I was teaching contractors how to build patios properly and not just putting, I'm sure you've heard it, people put 2 inches of screening on top of their grass, put down their patio stones, and they think they just built a patio that's going to last forever, right? So I was teaching people how to build patios. And I enjoyed it. Obviously I love being outside. What builder doesn't? And I started taking on some projects on my own. Referrals from that, like homeowners would come in, I would tell them how to build, and they would say, "Can you just build it for me?" Sure. On the weekends, I would do that. I would take on small projects, small patio projects, nothing crazy, but I would give the homeowners what they wanted, whether it be a 10 by 10 patio, no frills at all, like very simple, very basic, but it was a patio. That's what they wanted. The construction of a patio was the same, whether you're doing it simple or complex, right? And that's how I sort of started to grow my passion for hardscaping and outdoor living, construction. From there, it just kind of kept evolving. Projects got a little bit bigger, all referral base at that time, and yeah, I worked with a lot of people that I still associate with today. And this was, 10 years ago or more, 12 years ago. But that's how I got into hardscaping, and that's how I kind of gradually progressed myself to get into outdoor living and not so much geared towards the construction of custom home building.
With your construction management, going back to college for that, what were you able to kind of carry forward? I know you touched on like estimating there, it was covered heavily. What were you able to kind of carry forward to what you're doing today with Creek Homes?
Yeah, I think the estimating of it was huge for me, at least at first. I mean, now I don't really follow much of that. It's changed a lot for me in terms of a ton in terms of how we estimate projects. But the estimating part of it really helped me at first, getting an idea of how to price out projects, especially when you're on your own. When you're on your own, you have a lot more flexibility with money. You don't have a lot of overhead. So the estimating part was really helpful, I think. The law, I couldn't tell you a thing right now that I learned about construction law. So all those like 12-page contracts that I had to write back in college, yeah, they're gone. But yeah, the estimating was crucial, I think, at first. And then there was a lot of leadership stuff, like how to manage multiple people and multiple um, crews through a construction project. But I think of everything, if I had to pick one, it would be the estimating that I carried over very early into um, building projects.
With a name like Country Creek Homes, when you came up with that name, was there a thought that you would get into homes eventually, or what
Yeah,
was?
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I didn't I guess when picking the name, like I wanted something that was kind of original. Like Country Creek, you don't hear like it has nothing to do with building, right? It was more just a flavor, like a homey type of name for me. Holmes was definitely keeping my niche open. Like I knew very early, like I did snow removal. I did it. I did it for years. I knew I did not want my company to revolve around snow removal, but I also didn't want my company to be revolved around landscaping. And I mean, it was only 5 years ago my company started, but to go Country Creek Landscaping, I felt would really, really restrict my ability to do any interior work at all. Because you think you're a landscaper. I mean, first of all, if people tell you you're a landscaper, they think you cut grass. And we've never done that. We don't do that. So keeping it as homes allowed me to sort of focus on the entire house building experience, I guess, if you would say it. It covers inside and outside. It's a broader term. So that's kind of why I went with homes as opposed to niching it really far down to landscaping.
Do you, in the winter, do you still do snow clearing or do you do interior work now?
Yeah, we are fully out of snow. I did it on my own. I shouldn't say on my own. I had 2 years where I had a crew running walkway routes. Like we didn't get heavy into lot clearing. Me personally, I did lot clearing with actually the old landscape company that I worked with, the yard. I worked with, I did that forever. Yeah, and then once we started having kids, it wasn't feasible for me anymore. And as we grew and our interior projects started getting bigger in the wintertime, it really held us back. Every snow event would destroy the next 1 or 2 days because you work through the night 15 hours, you're not going to work the next day. And if you're lucky, you're going to work the next day. So that's when I really decided I have to get out of snow because I don't want my company to become a snow removable company in the wintertime.
Going back to your supply yard day, I used to work for a supplier as well, and that's where I picked up things. Same sort of
Yeah.
process, doing things on the weekend, bit by bit. What were you able to draw from your supply yard experience and help you into your starting your own business there?
I think I really got a good understanding of product, like what type of materials were available on the market. And I learned early what products I liked, like which manufacturers I liked, which were high-end products, and which were they worked, but they weren't, you know, the top tier manufactured product. I learned that very early. And then the products you don't see, like the aggregates, I learned a lot about that very early as well. But yeah, we would have sales reps come in all the time and teach us about their polymeric sands or their sealers. And I was able to learn a lot about that because I was very high up in that company, and I was a teacher to the staff under me and the homeowners and the DIYers that came in, as like I said, as well as the contractors that came in, that I would have to educate contractors on the new products and how to use them properly. So I think learning about the products was probably the biggest thing that I could take from that. It being a small family company, like they relied heavily on family to operate. They weren't very employee based. So I was able to get really in on how things operated to keep it going. So that helped a lot in terms of leadership and managing a small company. But definitely the product knowledge was huge for me in that. I learned way more there than I would have on site for sure.
And if somebody's listening to this and not following Country Creek Homes on Instagram, follow them at Country Creek Homes and beautiful projects. Now, when you went from supplier, did you start your business, like leave the supplier, start the business? Was that basically like the jump off there?
Yeah, no, I started doing a lot of small projects on my own before and doing both. So like I mentioned, weekends, I would do a lot of work on weekends. I would I would take time off from work to do a project. And at the time, everything was on my own. I was doing everything on my own. I had no staff, I had no help. So, a 300 square foot patio, I would do it on my own. It was simple, like there were no intricate designs or details, but it was all my own, and I would do that during um, while I was working at this particular depot. To top it off, I was building my personal home at the time, which added to the chaos of kind of starting your own business. But I did that for a while before I opened up Country Creek. Country Creek's only been open for about 5 years now, so there was a lot of side work. We'll call it side work, or weekend stuff that I partook in to build. I don't know if I really built my portfolio because the projects we do now are way different than what I did, when I first started off doing things on my own. But it got my foot in the door with clients and homeowners, And we were very much referral based for a long time.
So then what was that jumping off period where it just made sense that you would start your own business, or was it always the goal to start your own business? Was it just the money made sense, or the clients were there, or why not kind of continue with that supply yard?
That's a really good question. I never really thought of it, but I would say I knew really early that I didn't want to work for someone forever. I was just too controlling and too like focused on creating my own path, whether it be, whether you make a mistake or you do things perfectly. I wanted it all to be on me and kind of in my control. So I knew pretty early, like I would say even before I started my path to being a business owner in the outdoor living um, experience, like the outdoor living world. So I knew that I couldn't work for someone forever. Um, I think it just came to the right, like get almost more just getting the confidence to say it's time. Like the jobs were coming in. I had an employee who was not full time, but pretty much full time. So I knew I had support in working on projects. And that's when I kind of just said, you know what, it's time that I move on and do my own thing because projects are coming in and work doing both was limiting my ability to take on more projects.
And then when does the projects start to come in that you're doing now? Was it an intentional move to try to get those beautiful outdoor living spaces, intricate designs, inlays, and stuff like that? Or did you build towards that once you started the Country Creek Homes business?
I think what happened was I got bored of doing basic. Like when I started, I was doing what the homeowners wanted. And most homeowners don't know what they want, right? They just think they need a space to sit and put their barbecue. But once you start incorporating like lighting, like we do lots of lighting designs now, like lighting is huge for me. Once you start incorporating lighting and actually segregating your patio spaces where you have a dining space, you have a living space, you have a cooking space, it got more interesting for me. Yeah, so I think I just got really bored of doing a basic patio without creating something unique. And I think my creativity came from wanting to build custom homes without even really knowing it. Like building a custom home takes so much design, and there's so many pieces involved in building a home that when it came to outdoor living space, I think like I said, I just got bored of building a basic patio, and I started telling the homeowners what they needed as opposed to telling me what they thought they needed. Yeah. So, but I learned that before I started Country Creek.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. With getting that first one on your portfolio, where maybe you do a nice inlay or add that lighting, did you price it appropriately, or was it just a matter of, you know what, we're going to price it as is and get it on our portfolio so that we can use it for the next one, and then that's going to kind of get this ball rolling here?
Yeah, I remember the first project I did that really sort of started to build on what we do now. And I definitely did not price it. I could definitely not, absolutely not. We that was the first lighting project I did, and you actually shared that one and reposted it on, and that was when I thought, oh, this is amazing. Like things are happening, we're growing. But yeah, 100%, we did not price it. I did not price it accordingly. I probably, did I lose money? No, but did we make what was the worth of that project? 100% no. It turned out beautiful. I had like a fire a fire feature space with a sitting wall, and it was circular with a borealis slab, like from Techo Block. We used borealis, and there was a lot of curves involved. I had uh, you know, a patio space. We had a deck going into that, and then lighting around the perimeter. Like nothing crazy in terms of design, but it had specific areas that were obvious. Like we had the fire area that was circular, and we had a sitting area, and it turned out beautiful. Like to this day, it's still one of my favorite projects. I don't know if it's because it was that first project we did that was more design focused as opposed to just functionality. But definitely incorporating some lighting was big for us. And yeah, no, I did not price it accordingly, but it turned out beautifully, and it was a portfolio piece that to this day I could post, and people will still be really impressed with it, I think.
And I ask that because that's a very common thing that I hear is that the first one is not the profitable one, but it helps you with your portfolio and getting that out there. And going back to that one that you were just mentioning there, you have aerial shot coming down on it to show all the design that went into it. Has that always been something that you do, or did you hire that out to get the drone shot of it? Was that always intentional in your business to have that sort of marketing?
I don't think it was intentional. I think it's where the industry was going. Like we're so visual based, and Instagram is huge now. It's so influential in what we do. I think a picture not from the air doesn't really show you the true value of a project. Like if you take a picture on the ground, you're seeing a very small amount of a project, but to take it up into the air and see the entire project at once, it definitely showcases the detail in that project. And my guys will catch me so many times saying, if it doesn't look perfect, you are going to see it from the air, and it is going to drive me crazy. So if that like live low fixture is not the same distance off of the edge of the patio all the way down that garden bed, it is going to drive me nuts. You'll never see it when you're standing on the ground, but the aerial shot, you're going to see everything, and it's going to kill me. So yeah, the drone, I found myself using the drone and putting it in the air and using that to lay out like an inlay, or making sure I'm happy with the way something's proportionate on the project.
And then today, actually, let's go back a little bit. You did mention with going to college for construction management, the way that you learned estimating, and it's changed to the way that you kind of do it today. You've learned some things and have adapted. What would be something that you've kind of adapted from that construction management college that you've changed or altered slightly in the way that you price things today in your business?
Yeah, it's changed a lot, and it's changed many times. I think early, because I was on my own, I didn't have a lot of overhead stuff to think about. I would try to price out material and then price out like an hourly rate, which at the time was really low, like not even fair low, right? And then I got stuck in square foot pricing, and square foot pricing is very dangerous when you get detail oriented. There is a huge difference between a 10 by 10 patio that's flat and no detail versus a 10 by 10 patio that has a hatch pattern across the whole thing, or swirls or inlays even. And I got trapped in square foot pricing for a long time. Um, from there, I sort of started to think like we need to fix this. We need to figure out what it costs. Like once I started having full-time employees, I had to figure out what it cost me a day to operate and take the material amounts for a project, like how much material we're actually purchasing at a profit amount, and then from there, that's how I started generating pricing. But early it was square foot pricing, and that is a very dangerous thing to get into.
Getting into where you're getting your leads today, you did say word of mouth has been huge for you from the time that you started. Does it continue to get that ball rolling today, or have you ventured into other ways to get leads into your business?
Yeah, referrals were really good early because I was doing those simple patios that everybody kind of thought they wanted. So a referral system worked really well. But as my itch to kind of be more design oriented and get into larger projects, I think the referral pool sort of dried up because everyone that was referring new clients to me or new customers wanted or expected that simple patio space, right? As I wanted to grow and get more into design oriented spaces, I had to create a new referral pool, which when you start doing that, you don't have anything to refer on. So, um, Instagram was huge for us to get an idea of like for people to see what we were doing. And I think branching into like community based Facebook groups was really big at first. But yeah, the referral pool dried up pretty quickly originally, like when we transitioned from those simpler style patios to the more design oriented patios and backyard spaces that we're doing now.
Do you find that that referral pool has built up and you're starting to get referrals from similar projects?
Yeah, a little bit. I still think, I mean, at least for where we are, that it's a tougher industry to hit. Like it's a tougher market to hit because it is a higher price point, obviously. And but as we start to grow our portfolio and people start to see more of what we're doing, it's getting a little bit easier. Like I think this year has been the year I've had more referrals for clients that are more willing to spend money on their spaces and invest into their backyard spaces as opposed to just I want something basic and I want somewhere to put my barbecue and put my patio table and I'll be happy with it.
So today, when a client reaches out to you, whether it's email, text, phone call, where do you start that conversation to see if they would be a good fit for what you guys are doing today?
Yeah, I'm really open to talking to anybody because, like I said, I don't think people really know what they want until they get an idea of what's available to them. When leads come in, I try to have them like to pre-qualify people. I try to have them fill out one of our online form just to get it gives me a little bit of an idea of what they're looking for at least, and by outlining some of the features that can be incorporated into an outdoor living space, I think opens their eyes to the possibilities more than if you just talk to them about what they want. So I think that request form has been really big for me to sort of pre-qualify people. And then honestly, making the budget component a priority, I probably deters more people than I even know away from filling out that form. But budget is always a thing, like a topic of discussion that people don't know what they want to spend or really what things cost. So that has been like even that one little drop down menu on a request form makes a huge difference for pre-qualifying people for sure.
I like that it's a drop down menu. So you give them the option of different ranges basically
Yeah,
so that they're
yeah,
not putting in like
100%.
$1 or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think when I first started it and I wanted to make a budget a priority, it would be input what your budget is. Yeah, I think people would put $5,000 or $10,000 and have no idea that their backyard's actually going to cost them $35,000, right? So a drop down menu at least gives them a range and it gives them a minimum amount to click on, right? Even I think for us right now, the minimum one is like 10 to 25,000. And at least they get an idea that you can't, like, I couldn't do anything really for 10,000. So I should probably increase that now that I'm like talking, saying it out loud. But at least it gives them idea, like, we got to spend 25 grand to build something. And I think that's a big component to pre-qualifying people for them to get an idea of what these things actually cost. And I get a lot of clients right now that will say they clicked on the lowest one, like the smallest amount, because they don't really know what it costs still. But in my eyes, at least they picked something and they're not afraid of those numbers, right? If they're afraid of $10,000, then we're probably not a good fit for them right off the bat. So it eliminates that possible, not issue, but like that conversation of saying, like, $10,000, we can't get you too much with it. Like maybe a fire feature and some garden beds or something. But yeah, so the pre-qualifying thing has been big for me now as we transition to more higher end spaces.
If somebody did go through that contact form and say they really like your work, they want Country Creek Homes, but they're just looking for a small patio, like $5,000, very small backyard patio done. Would you guys do it and entertain that, or are you specifically going after a certain market there?
Yeah, I think it would be really difficult for us to do it, especially based on like this the crew that I have. Not saying it's not doable. I think I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to push more higher, not so much high end, but a certain, like, I want our brand to go a certain direction. So doing a project that's $5,000 won't really fit our our brand image anymore, because you can do something really cool for $5,000 for sure, 100%, and you'll be in and out very quickly. It's just not where we want to kind of push the business right now, like our brand.
We want to take a break from today's episode to talk about marketing. Are you looking to take your hardscape business to the next level? Well, this is brought to you by Patio SEO, the leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed, who owns multiple hardscape businesses across the country. And here's the kicker. You're not just getting access to any team. You're getting access to the very team that helped grow James's own companies, plus hundreds of others in the industry. Whether you need a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, Patio SEO has got you covered. They've been in your shoes and know exactly what works. We've had James Reed on the podcast a couple of times, and there's some of our more popular episodes, talking about branding, talking about how he's built companies across the country. And with that, he needs lots of leads, which means he's had to perfect his branding and marketing. And now you can have access to that same in-house team that he has access to for his own hardscape company. So if you're ready to build your brand and see some serious growth, check them out at patioseo.com. That's patioseo.com, or follow James on Instagram at road to 100ms. That's road to 100ms. Let's get your business the attention it deserves. Now back to the episode. So then somebody fills out the contact form. Where do you take that conversation from there? Do you hop on a phone call and schedule an in-person consultation? And yeah, where do you first take that?
Yeah, I typically try to do an over the phone consultation with them, just to give me a better idea of what they're looking for. We get to kind of talk about pricing a little bit more. A typical backyard with X amount of features costs so much money, say. And if they kind of back off and say, "Oh my God, like that's not really what I'm looking for," it's not the greatest fit for us. But if they're kind of, they're on board, they're open to my ideas and my design elements, and they've seen what we do. After that design consultation, I really want to book, like, I would book an in person with them. Referral based clients, I'm a little bit more open to in-person consultations right off the bat, because they're a little bit warmer leads, and they're referrals. So you want to make sure you're treating them the same way you treated your previous clients, because they're referrals, and like I said, they're a little bit warmer in terms of client possibility. So they already know or they at least they have a good idea what you're kind of going to cost and what you're kind of going to build, because they definitely asked their friend how much their project cost and how it was to work with us. So I'm definitely way more open to meet them in person right off the bat and see what happens, right? But definitely way more open to meeting them in person in that particular scenario.
And then do you charge for consultations? Yes, no, and why or why not?
Yeah, I don't charge for consultations. Maybe in the future I've thought about it, and not even charging much, like maybe saying $50 or $100 and then taking it off the project if they decide to go with it. And it would just sort of give people that extra like pre-qualifying. Like if they don't want to spend $100 on a consultation when they're serious, they're definitely not going to spend $50,000 on a backyard. Um, but at this time, no, I don't charge for consultations, because I do that pre-qualifying phone call, which it takes nothing to have a phone call, 30 minutes on the phone, where they can get a pretty good understanding of what things might cost. And then, like I said, with referrals, I'm really open to meeting them in person because they know kind of already what we're looking for. And I find referrals are a lot less likely to get three, four, five different companies to bid on a project. So yeah, I don't charge for consultations right now.
And then on that initial consultation, what kind of questions are you asking them? What are you bringing with you to show them? Yeah, I'll leave it at that there.
I try to let the clients kind of tell me what they're like, the homeowners try to tell me what they're looking for, or how they want to utilize the space. Some people know, and some people have no idea what they want. Some people be very specific. We want this sitting area, like a very intimate sitting area where we can kind of go off into the back of our property and have a glass of wine or something, and just it's a quiet area. Some will say we really want, to be able to entertain our family and have like designated patio or dining areas and living areas. Other people, if I ask them, what they visualize for the space, they really have no idea. Um, so I try to get an understanding of what they're looking for, and that helps kind of build a space for them. So that'll be the first one. If they know how to answer it or not, we kind of have to move from there. With respect to the on-site visits, at first I don't bring a lot. I really don't bring much. I don't bring a lot of samples. I don't bring products for them to see. I really just bring myself. It's more like a conversation at that point. um, I spend a little bit of time measuring the space out, but you can do a lot of that from Google Earth right now. Like you can measure an entire backyard from Google Earth, and if it's fairly flat and fairly straightforward, I try to spend more time talking to the clients than really measuring and laying out their patio before I even get an idea of what they're looking for. I'll start designing a pro, like I do all of our 3D renderings myself. I'll start designing it and it will completely pivot from what I originally thought, just because it plug and play of different textures and colors and layouts. It's so easy to do when you start designing. So I don't bring a lot at first anyway. Yeah.
Was the like product selection start to play a role in that? Do you initially sign them up for a design, present the design, and then say, "Hey, we can swap out these products, or I can meet you at my supplier and go through the different products"? When does that kind of start to play a factor?
After meeting with them for the on-site visit, I'll sort of generate a budget range for them. Like free, it won't be a charged expense or anything. It's not invoice. It's just a range based on projects we've done in the past or types of features that I know we're going to incorporate. From there, it's really up to them if they want to move forward to the design stages. If I give them a range of, you know, 30 to 40,000 and they're comfortable with it, that's when I'll present them with moving to the actual design phases of what we do of our process. And for there, like we do charge for designs. I do take it off of the cost of the project, but I feel like once we get to the design phase, people are pretty much committed to us already. They have a range of what they want us or what they're looking at. and it just allows me to present them with a completed project, like a rendering of a completed project, and then a price point that matches what they're getting from a material standpoint, from a color, from a layout, lighting, everything. It's a little bit easier to compare project to price at that point. Um, when it comes to bringing materials to them, we'll do that after the design phase. So after the design phase, if they kind of sign off on the design, then I'll meet with them in person. They've already paid for the design, so they're already sort of committed to the project or to working with us. Then I'll meet them in person. I'll bring my sample case of sort of all the products that I've incorporated into the project, plus a few more if we want to change things up a little bit. But that's when I'll bring them products. I'll bring them the sample. I have an amazing case from Techo Block with all of their products in it in these beautiful little packages. I'll bring a handful of those, and I'll bring my in-light case that I can plug into the wall, and they can see all the lighting set up. So that we'll do that in person after they've sort of signed off on the design, liking at least what the layout of it is.
How often does a design that you present change, not just kind of leading up to the construction date, but even during when you kind of started? Do you ever present them with, hey, actually, we could do this over here if you wanted to, or maybe add this inlay that maybe you said no to at the beginning? Does that design kind of alter as you kind of get started in that construction phase?
Yeah, it does. I would say the design that I present to them at the beginning will always slightly change, and it'll pretty much be my say on how it changes because I'll be doing something and I'll say, you know what, we could really implement these extra pieces to give it a little something extra. And honestly, a lot of the extra pieces that we implement are lighting details, like lighting elements, because I feel like lighting is one of those things people always kind of shy away from early on, and it can get expensive when you're dealing with a high end lighting product. When it comes to inlays, yeah, I'll change things up a little bit depending on how everything's coming together, or I might change up a product a little bit. Usually, people are pretty on board with the changes, but for the most part, the design will sort of stay the same, just add on to it. Like usually, there's a lot more add-ons through the project than there are during the discussions about design and pricing at the beginning before it starts.
Talking about pricing, do you guys have a specific payment plan or payment period schedule, like 10% up front, leaving a certain percentage at the very end, draws within between? Do you have a set amount, or does it just depend on the project, project by project basis that you do that?
Yeah, it's kind of set, but it does vary slightly depending on the size of the project. I think a larger project the payments might be drawn out a little bit more, like phased a little bit more. And I kind of really developed this more with our interior work and being able to pick exactly which milestone was worthy of a payment. And I translated that over to the exterior side as well. So we'll do like typically 10 or 15%, at signing, and then a percentage on the start date, like the first day of the project. I'll usually do another at when all the material gets delivered, when the stone and the stone, the aggregates are usually built into the initial the first payment. But when stone's on site, by then a big chunk of the project has already been paid for, and then a small portion, like 10 or 15% at the end, just to kind of to close us off and get us through to completion.
Interior work, do you try to save all of that for the winter time, or are there times throughout the summer months, spring, summer, fall, where an interior project will present itself and you'll do that as opposed to doing a outdoor space?
Unfortunately, we have had to do a few interior projects over like throughout the summer. I really try to push them to the winter only. I don't like I actually don't advertise at all for interior work I would say since I've been open, since my company's been operational, the only projects we've done interior are previous outdoor clients. They have all been based on clients we've worked with in the past on an outdoor project. I've been fortunate that way. Can it go on forever? I don't know. But up till this point, it has been that. Uh, I've tried really hard to avoid doing them in the summer. Unfortunately, a couple times we've had to, like late in the year, like September or late August, we've started an interior project, and only because I have another one coming up, like scheduled for January. And if I don't do it in September, because there'll be typically 2 month projects when we're working inside, so I can't do 4 months in the wintertime, like January to April, it gets really tight with any delays. Like the next project will carry into our summer. And I really try to avoid working inside in the summer because we're focused on our outdoor living spaces for sure. Yeah.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in the industry with 35 plus years of industry experience building Oriole landscaping in Toronto, which they are completely hands off at this point. George and Peter have been on the podcast before, and George on multiple occasions now. I've personally leaned on him to help with the How to Hardscape headquarters software and how we can maximize the efficiency of user experience. And I know the guys at DTE Landscaping, Chuck and Jeffrey, who we've also had on the show multiple times, have hired them on in the past. Check out their consulting services, peer groups, and events that are coming up on their website, knowledgetreeconsulting.com, or check them out on Instagram at joinktc. Now back to our episode. I asked this next question, Kurt, to every business owner that comes on the show. It's a horror story you've experienced in your time in business. Could be just a headache or something that happened, whether on site or dealing with a client, or we were talking about payment. It could be a payment thing, but this is more so to help out our contractors that are just getting started, give them a little bit of taste of what can happen, maybe put roadblock or some safety guards in place to prevent it from happening to them. But Kurt, do you have a horror story you'd want to share with us?
Yeah, I really do. And I thought I I know we were going to talk about this, so I thought about it a little bit because I really wanted something that was it fit. And I would say the worst instance I came across was during COVID. My company was really, like, at the time, like we were maybe a year or two old, and we had set this project. It was a great project. We were ready to go. Day, like, products, everything was scheduled and ready. We went into day one. Before we started, like the night before, I just went to the dealer and made sure everything's good to go and we're ready for delivery for this day. Day one, we show up and I find out my stone for that project is gone. It was sold off. Or just didn't make it to the. And I mean, I'm sure operating through COVID, material was crazy. It was like you had to order. If you didn't order your product in May or June, you were not getting it, whether it was the most common product or something special, like getting something specialty. If you didn't order it early on, you were not getting it that year. So like a simple product, like very common, it was gone. It just wasn't available to me. My order was gone. Uh, there was a lot of opinions from the homeowner about how that was handled, and it got a little bit ugly. Like day one, it was pretty rough, and we almost just said, you know what, we're gonna move on. Like, I think you need to find somebody else because this escalated a lot. You know what? I ended up smoothing it over with them, and not so much because I had to have the job. It was more just because I don't like leaving things, like, I don't want to leave things unfinished or not handled properly. So we smoothed it over. We ended up switching to the same stone but thicker. Like, it was more like rated for vehicular traffic as opposed to residential. So it cost a little bit more on us. I ended up eating the cost of it just to, keep things kind of smooth. But that was a situation. Like, I was there, my guys were there, the homeowners were on the driveway, and there's like, how can you run a business like this? Like you're starting today and you don't have your project. Oh my God, it was ugly. But it was just one of those things. Like we had it was paid, it was ready to go. It just disappeared, you know? Someone, the wrong person picked it up and loaded it up onto someone's truck instead of saying we're out of stock on it. So it's no one's fault. It's just, yeah, that was something. That was and very early in my like in the ownership of Country Creek, yeah, that was something to deal with for sure. But you know what? That project went so well. Like we finished it, it turned out amazing. Like the homeowners were great. They bought us sandwiches, like whole lunch and stuff at the end of the project. They loved it. They didn't listen to my original design plan and they kind of wanted to pivot a little bit. So they ended up calling me back a few weeks later to expand onto the project. Um, so it ended up great. It just, yeah, that was a really, yeah, that was stressful opening to a project for sure.
Definitely. But ends at in a good note. And they even brought you back. So obviously you smooth things over
Exactly. Yeah.
really well.
And they ended up actually bringing me back a few years later for some interior work. It didn't end up going through, but they called me back and I was, I talked to them like everything was good. So it worked out really well. But yeah, that was definitely a horror story to talk about.
Thank you for sharing that with us here. Uh, Kurt, do you have any installation things or equipment that you live by, installation methods that you live by in your business, equipment that's got you to where you are that you love, tools, anything like that that you'd want to talk about? That I usually just throw this question in there just to see what anybody wants to say on those.
Yeah. I mean, installation, I feel like it's always evolving. We're always trying to keep up with new techniques or better products to incorporate into our projects. Um, when I first started, crush run, like three-quarter crush and limestone screening was like the way to go. And that was like what, 5, 6 years ago. Since then, I mean, now we're in a fully hybrid based system with three-quarter clear and HPB or quarter chip. And, we're incorporating fabrics in between the base layer and the undisturbed soil. The typical things like geogrids, we're starting to incorporate more geogrid into our patio as a standard now, not just walls. Uh, as we transition into hybrid bases, concrete edge restraints became a standard for us. So we're always evolving when it comes to installation and just kind of seeing what the industry, how the industry goes, because, we don't want to be stuck. I'm very open to evolving. Like I talked to some older builders and they're like, crush run and limestone screen. That's the way to go. Like if you're using HPB, like I took HPB onto this custom home. We did 8 townhouses for a friend of mine who built 8 townhouses. And the guy doing the asphalt, he was like old school, like just cussed me out for bringing HPB into the project in any way because it's terrible, right? But yeah, we're always evolving. I'm very open to evolving with installation methods for sure, and just trying to make it better, right? When it comes to tools, honestly, the biggest thing, once I purchased my mini track loader instead of just renting it, I think that changed the game for us so much because when we were renting it, it was great to have on site, but I felt like it was always we have it on site for our excavation and then we get it back to the renter, so we're not paying extra fees. We never really rented machinery for weeks or months at a time. We kind of did it based on what we were doing. So it was always used for excavation. Once we purchased our own track loader, we use that thing for everything, man. We use it for excavating, backfilling, moving our stone around, moving our equipment around, like some of our compactors. We move like it's made such a difference on our job site efficiency just because we use it for way more than I thought I would use it for when I originally intended on purchasing it.
And anybody that you has helped you along the way that you'd want to give a shout out to, or that you look to for inspiration, helped you in business, helped you online, offline, whoever it is, anybody that you'd want to give a shout out here.
I think when I started, I was really much in the mindset like, don't share your thoughts or your theories with anybody. Like keep it to yourself because everyone's just trying to steal from you or take your ideas. And I don't know like if that was just like an old school mentality that I got from people that I grew up with. But as I start, so that was probably really early, like a couple years in, like I was really hesitant about who we shared with. But this industry is so amazing. Like everyone just wants to learn from each other. There is no there's so much work out there that you do not need to compete with the person who works in your neighborhood. Like you guys can grow off of each other. So I learned pretty quickly after that this industry is a network and there's so much to learn from everybody. I don't know if I had anybody specific that kind of mentored me uh, into where I kind of grew into. I would definitely say there's a few guys on Instagram or social media that you can gain inspiration from. I haven't had an opportunity to really meet a lot of these guys, but like Sean from Premier Outdoor, the projects he does are amazing. We sort of do the same type of thing where we incorporate decks and patios, maybe not on the same scale as he's doing now, like, but we like to try to incorporate both elements and multiple elements of material into our project. So he was probably one of the first that I started to like look at and say like, this is really cool, man. You're doing some good stuff. I know RC Outdoor does some amazing stuff. I know you've had him on too before. I think the size of projects that he takes on, and the size of his crew it's run very efficiently. So I think early on, like those are a couple guys that I looked at their pages and be like, you know what, this is really cool. You guys are doing some good stuff, and they're small companies. They're not massive companies. They're one man crews, right? They don't have 10 crews running $10 million a year, but the project sizes and the detail that goes into their projects is really something that you can, uh, you know, like take inspiration from.
Kurt, what's one thing you're struggling with right now in your business or currently working on to get through in your business? Anything that kind of comes to mind with something that you're working on or struggling with in your business?
I think as our projects get bigger, they take way more time to plan and organize. I think one of the hardest things that I'm dealing with is transitioning. Like I love being on the tools. It is my passion. I love it. It like being on site, building is what I love to do. But somebody has to run the back end. Like somebody has to design that project. Somebody has to spend. Sometimes by the time we were building a project, I've spent 8, 10 hours or more with those homeowners discussing their projects or meeting with them, and it takes a lot of time. So I think that's the biggest thing for me right now in terms of transitioning is spending more time away from the job site and working on that back end stuff instead of just being able to show up, put your put your tool belt on, or jump on the. I don't remember the last time I had the opportunity to actually excavate a patio. My guys are great. They take care of that, and that's what I try to do. So I try to be away from the excavation and the backfill portion, take care of as much of the back end stuff as I can. But then when we start building and actually laying out those inlays or steps or lighting, I have to be involved because I'm too like I will change a lighting plan on the spot because I don't like the way it looks in real life where it did in the design plan. Usually, once we've had our design or our lighting package, for example, installed, I will go back that night. Like we haven't finished the project. I'll go back at night just to see how everything looks at night because it looks totally different during the day than it does at night. And there's been a lot of times I've added stuff. I've added a lot of lighting on my dime just because I need to do it, and I do it for our portfolio. Like right now I'm at the point where if I want to get these high end luxury style projects that are really unique and eye catching, I add a lot of stuff to them throughout the process of the construction. And I just think of it as an investment back into my company right now. Is it going to pay? Yeah. I've had a lot of clients who have picked lighting packages, for example, based on products I've done in the past. Like we've done a couple starry night walkways. And I've had clients say, I have to have this. I don't care how you do it, just fit it into my project somewhere. So, if I spend an extra few bucks on some fixtures for a lighting package and then it pays off to someone else, I see it as an investment to my company. And that's the way I look at adding little details to projects right now, just to build that portfolio and gain more exposure into what can really be done in an outdoor living space.
Just like you, lighting is probably the number one thing that I've given away most on all projects. It just seems to be that way for some reason.
Yeah, it's so easy to say, we'll just stick a couple little recessed fixtures here. It doesn't seem like much, but you add like five more fixtures, and it's like that's a little bit
Yeah.
pricey, but it looks amazing. So I'm gonna keep it, and it's an investment into my company, and that's it. Yeah.
Definitely. Kurt, it's been a pleasure to get to talk to you here. One last question before we go. What is one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning? This could be business related, personal related, as far back as you want to go, from before Country Creek Homes or from the beginning of Country Creek Homes. But what is that one thing you know now you wish you knew from the very beginning?
I think there's a lot that you could actually like talk about right now. If I had to pick one or two, I would say you absolutely have to make time for your family. Once I started having kids, like weekends were not workable anymore. Like if I could squeeze something in here and there if I absolutely had to, but the amount of time, like your kids are only like kids for so long. So I think that was a big eye opener once we started having kids to like have family time on the weekends and at nights. Like close the laptop, shut it down. That's one for sure. I think the other, like from a business standpoint, is learning that square foot pricing is deadly, and you cannot grow or run a business on square foot pricing. Still to this day, I have so many clients who say, what do you charge per square foot? And you just got to be open. I cannot charge per square foot. Like I try to be so creative with our designs that charging by square foot is just not possible, or I'm going to tell you this crazy number just to give you a square foot price. So I think learning how much it actually costs to operate a business and what it takes from a financial side to operate a business is really important. And once I sort of started to learn that and completely go away from square foot pricing was a big change for us, because yeah, it can be really dangerous for sure if for people who still, depending on what you're in, right? Like if you do a 10 by 20 patio with a little bit of banding, yeah, you can probably charge per square foot. But once you start getting intricate with your designs and details and incorporating so many different elements into a project, yeah, square foot pricing is not feasible anymore.
Kurt, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Where can our audience go find out more about you, Country Creek Homes? Where do you want to send them to?
Yeah, Instagram for sure is probably the biggest. I'm pretty active on there. Country Creek Homes. I'm on there all the time. You can DM me whatever you want. I'm always answering. I love talking to people about what they're working on. Homeowners even message me about ideas. So yeah, Instagram is definitely the first one that you would want to reach me at for sure.
Awesome. Kurt, thank you so much here.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go check out Kurt at Country Creek Homes on Instagram to see his beautiful work there. And while you're there, at How to Hardscape, send me a message on somebody that you'd want to hear on the show, some topic that you'd want covered. We've recently got a lot of good suggestions, so thank you for those. And if you want a demo of the How to Hardscape headquarters software, you can also send me a message there and we'll set you up with a demo. And before we leave, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. PatioSEO.com. And now you know Patio SEO can take your hardscape business to the next level. James Reed and his expert team have built a reputation on success, not just for their own companies, but for hundreds of others just like yours. So don't wait. Visit PatioSEO.com to learn more and get started. But also be sure to follow James's journey on Instagram at Road to 100Ms. That's Road to 100MS for behind the scenes tips and insights. And I do recommend checking that out and following along to that. Ready to build your brand? Patio SEO is here to help you every step of the way. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. George and Peter there are efficiency consultants in our industry, and I've had the privilege of having them both on one episode of the How to Hardscape podcast, and George multiple other times. Always great episodes, and I also got to sit down on a one-on-one with George and went through what they do for businesses, and I left that meeting with a lot of value, so I can't recommend them enough. If you want to learn more about what they do, go to knowledgetreeconsulting.com and get that conversation started with them today. And we look forward to meeting you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.